we're good to go.
All right, the meeting will come to order. This is Erda City Council meeting. This is Thursday, April 28th, 2022 at 7:05 p.m. We are in the Tooele County Auditorium located at 47 South Main Street, Tooele, Utah. We've got this meeting broadcast on YouTube and also on Google Meet. And we'll start off with a roll call. We are excusing Scott for a few minutes. He's at the Council of Governments meeting for a little bit. He'll join us as soon as he can. Terry Weiner.
Here.
Cal Martin.
Here.
Jess Bird is here. Craig Smith.
Here.
As I said, we're expecting Scott Dubé, but he's not here yet. Let's see, Cal, would you mind leading our pledge tonight?
Absolutely. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll open the meeting to public comment.
Comment, singular. I come to pay tribute to the King, as instructed by the Erda City Council. That if I want to play, I gotta pay. Okay, I'm here to talk, okay?
I believe this is
This is the $1,500 you guys told me I had to pay in order to get my grandma request fulfilled, okay?
Cash is okay.
And it better damn well be okay. It says for all debts, public and private, right printed on the front of it. I'm talking, would you let me talk?
Go ahead.
I don't want to be schooled by you either, because you're gonna get talked about here too.
Go ahead. I'm
All right, so I have filed many grandma requests in my life. Freedom of Information Act requests. I've done it with the BLM, the National Park Service, the FAA, the FCC, the state of Utah, Lieutenant Governor's Office, Tooele County, Tooele City. I have never paid, not one time, to get those grandma requests or any of those acts filled. But you guys won $1,500, okay? And you filled other grandma requests without charging for them. But for me, you want $1,500. All right? I've been talking to the Government Records Ombudsman with the Division of Archives and Records Storage. And they're aware of this situation. You may have an investigation over this. Now, your letter to me indicated the thousands, plural, many thousands of emails and documents you're going to have to find for me. Okay, many thousands, plural. I'm going to be really anxious to see those many thousands because other grandma requests have been like 100 coming from you guys. I received 2,418 documents. That is thousands, just barely, from the Lieutenant Governor's office. And they didn't charge a penny. The deliverables have been low from you guys before. Why is it many thousands now, I wonder? Or are you just trying to scare me off? Are you bluffing? Do you know the chilling effect this will have on the community if everybody thinks they're going to have to cough up this much money to come and ask for any kind of transparency? Is that the message that you really want to give to the whole citizenry of Erda? Because that's what you're doing. That's exactly what you're doing. Now, a government entity may not charge a fee for reviewing a record. Now, this is in Title 63G. If you need the site, I can give you the site. Because I'm reading the actual language. The government entity may not charge a fee for reviewing a record to determine whether it is subject to disclosure. That's where the majority of the time will be. You're supposed to classify all your records that you retain. And then you decide, after you review them and inspect them, which you can also not charge for inspecting a record, whether or not you're going to give it up. And if you don't give it up, you have to tell me why you're not giving it up and what it is that you're not giving up, okay? If you redact information, you've got to tell me why you're redacting it and the nature of the material you're redacting. But you can't charge me for any of that by state law, okay? And I'll stipulate that you redact all email addresses of people that sent you emails, because I wouldn't want you giving my email address out to somebody else too. Now, I fully understand why the allegedly criminal conspirators, and I'm talking about the ECA here, okay? Criminal conspirators and their agents and sympathizers, okay? The agents and sympathizers in this room, okay?
Sir, are you?
Note that I am accusing you of something, and it's going to come out. It's going to come out later. We have it on video, okay? You're going to get accused by a video, okay? But I said allegedly, right?
No, you accused me, sir.
I accused you allegedly of being a criminal conspirator with him and the ECA of crimes against the city, against the city council.
What crimes, Chuck?
This is all coming out, okay? There's litigation in the works, and there's winds of blowing of criminal issues in the works here, okay? Criminal charges blowing in the wind. But I'm telling you, I know why you don't want your records out, okay? And there are things that you have to divulge, and things some of us are already in possession of, and we're waiting to see if you actually do divulge them, okay? So if you don't divulge them, then you've committed a crime. Spoliation. You've committed the crime of spoliation, right? The delete key can get you detained in jail or in prison. The AG's office has a 6-page document for guys like you on what records to retain. And basically, you have to retain everything, including text messages, Facebook group posts, any communication and all communication. You got to detain it. You got to give it up. Okay? And there's one communication I saw was a screenshot. Came from one of you guys, referred to a couple of developers. I won't say what the actual words were, but it was a homosexual slur. You know, and it involved the ECA and the city of Erda. And it linked all three together, really. That's a really good one. So I've got a copy of the other end. All communications have two ends. There's a lot of unhappy people in this community. And a lot of unhappy people sending me stuff almost on a daily basis. So govern yourselves accordingly. You got your money. You got 10 days. Anyone online, Jim?
There are no hands raised at this time. Any other public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public comment.
There's a second.
Second.
And moved and seconded, we close public comment. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, public comment's closed. Chair moves that we approve meeting minutes from April 21st.
So moved. Yeah, second.
I wasn't here, so I can't.
Called it.
I listened to it, but
And Jen sent them around.
there's a quorum here anyway, so we're good.
Okay. All right, been moved and seconded. We approve these meeting minutes from April 21st. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Okay, we have a presentation from Utah Approves. And you wanted to set up a projector?
That's right, yeah. I'll pull that over here.
Mr. Treasurer?
She wants to do this.
We need to write him a receipt.
Yes, please.
This will be a deposit for grammar request, and you better.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can I get the spelling of your name so I can make sure it's correct on the receipt?
MCCOWN.
And it's Chuck, is that correct?
All right. Thank you, members of the council, for having me here to talk about approval voting today. So my name is Nate Allen. I'm the executive director of Utah Approves. We were founded in 2020. Our main goal is to improve elections across the state to be fairer and more representative. And we're trying to use well-researched and common sense policies to achieve that. The policy that I want to talk to you about today is called approval voting. So at this point, you're probably wondering what approval voting is. Simply put, approval voting allows voters to choose all of the candidates they like rather than just one. There's no round-by-round tabulation or complexity like that. The votes are tallied as normal, and the candidate or candidates with the most votes wins, depending on if you have 1, 2, or 3 winners in that race. Just to run through a quick example, say you have 4 people on your ballot, and I'm just going to use the example of fruit and vegetables. So say you like fruit more than vegetables, and your favorite fruit is peaches. Under our current system called plurality voting, you could just choose Mr. Peach, and that would be your absolute favorite. Under approval voting, you could choose all of the fruits that are on the ballot. So you could choose blueberries, peaches, apples, and still withhold your vote from Mr. Squash, the vegetable on the ballot, because let's be honest, who likes vegetables more than fruit? So at this point, it's kind of valuable to understand why approval voting is different than our current system. So our current system elects based on exclusive support. So what this means is you have to narrow it down to your absolute 1 favorite or 2 favorites in a city council race with 2 winners and choose those candidates. Approval voting works based on favorability rating. So because you can select more than 1 candidate, the vote tallies are added up, and you might have somebody who has 60% of the vote, and the second winner could have still over 50% of that vote. So the real goal is to just get an accurate understanding of how much support each candidate has, rather than forcing people to narrow it down to just one, which features things like the spoiler effect and vote splitting, which I'll go into a little bit later. Our current system tends to favor candidates with a passionate base of support. So this is the largest single voting block. A great example is the 2020 gubernatorial primary. Spencer Cox won with 36.1% of the vote, which is far from a majority, also far from just being a strong amount of support. The reason that is because, again, that was the largest single voting block. Approval voting elects candidates with broad-based appeal, candidates that appeal to a bunch of voting blocks that may coalesce under a certain ideology and come together and select that candidate. Our current system, plurality voting, still works great if you only have 2 candidates in the race. You're going to have to pick one of them. But approval voting works really well when you have more than 2 candidates in the race, and that's because it deals with the spoiler effect very well. It doesn't deal with vote splitting or anything like that. So there are quite a few benefits to approval voting. One of them is cost savings if you want to eliminate your primary. It's completely compatible to still have your primary if you choose to leave it that way, but that is a potential avenue for cost savings. It's also very simple. It's more expressive for voters. It limits vote splitting and spoiled elections. Has clear winning mandates, higher voter satisfaction, and it's secure, transparent, and easily audited. And I'll go over all of these in a bit more detail. So the first thing is the cost savings. Approval voting works better than plurality in crowded races, as I already mentioned. And with the cost savings especially, it's important because if you eliminate that primary, voters only have to vote once. They only have to participate in that election one time. They don't have to go and then go back a second time. Primary elections typically have very low voter turnout anyway. Erda is a little bit of an exception just because you are very new. So the primary election turnout in Erda was 9%, which is extremely low. The general election was about 50% though. So I would guess that 9% comes from it just being the first election in the city's history. But we would still expect it to be a little bit lower than the general election. Additionally, I was able to get some of the information for how much was spent by the county on the Erda City election. In the general, it was about $4,400. So being a small town, you don't really have to pay that much for your elections. We usually see about the same amount in the primary. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that data today. But what we expect is about half of that money that you spend on the primary to be saved if you just combine it all into one election. And that's based on what we've seen other cities do using ranked choice voting and taking away the extra amount that they had to spend on voter education. The next thing I want to mention is the simplicity of approval voting. It's really simple for everybody involved. So the city has very little voter education needed, unlike with ranked choice voting. There's a lot of complexity. We heard from a lot of candidates who ran with ranked choice voting this past year that they just spent way too much time explaining how to choose them on the ballot rather than being able to talk about the issues and the policies that they enjoy. So it's just very low demand for the city to have to educate because all it is a change to that instruction line on the ballot. It's the only thing that changes from choose one to choose as many as you like. It's also very simple for the candidates. There's a simple, straightforward strategy, which is just appeal to as many people as possible. You don't have to worry if there's another candidate running against you who is very similar ideologically to you. You don't have to worry about that splitting the vote. All you have to do is appeal to the voters. There's also no need to explain the voting method, as I just mentioned. It's extremely simple for voters because the ballot instructions are simple. And there's fewer spoiled ballots. One of the main reasons for spoiled ballots is when people overvote, meaning they put 2 when they can only vote 1 or put 4 when they can only pick 3, and that ballot just gets thrown out altogether and those aren't counted in the overall results. Because with approval voting, you can select more than whoever is to be elected. That eliminates that most frequent occurrence of spoiled ballots. And with approval voting elections in the past, we usually see a very, very low spoiled ballot percentage. Lastly, it's also very simple for the county. There's no new software required. The ballot size remains unchanged, which means that mail-in voting is also the same price. You don't have to increase that cost like with ranked choice. And elections also remain precinct summable, which is extremely important for security. Obviously, in a city election, you don't really have to worry about that because it's all tabulated in one small location anyway. But if this is something that eventually catches wind in the state legislature, that's going to be really important to maintain an audit trail that the county clerks are comfortable with and making sure that we're keeping our elections secure and transparent. So speaking about the counties a little bit, it's also very easy to administrate. As I mentioned, it's precinct summable, but county clerks have also stated approval voting is the only alternative voting method to plurality that they support and that has an audit trail that they're comfortable with. And that's one of the reasons that we're out here today talking to cities, just trying to figure out where that support lies with cities across the state now that we know that the county clerks are at least willing to run an approval voting election if the city wants to. There's no increased cost of administering elections from the county standpoint, so that's one of the reasons they don't really have objections. And voter education is also extremely cost efficient. As I mentioned, the cost for educating voters is extremely low with approval voting, and my organization is also prepared to front any voter education cost. We can help with mailing costs or printing costs, things like that, just to make the burden on the city negligible. The next thing I want to mention is higher voter satisfaction. This one works best with a graph, but I'll do my best to explain it. So in 2021, the St. Louis mayoral primary, Tashara Jones won with 57%, and they use approval voting. The second place winner came in second with 46% of the vote. Why this is important is because under the current system, nobody could get any of those high numbers. But when you have 2 candidates with those high numbers, the person who wins has a strong winning mandate to lead. They're confident that the people like them. And they can also understand that there was another candidate who had broad support, and they can understand what parts of their platform they may want to adopt onto their own to best represent their constituency. Skip that one. So the next question is kind of where approval voting has been used. It's been used for hundreds of years in the papal conclaves to elect the Pope. They used it in Venice, Italy for hundreds of years, the Greek legislature, and it's still currently used to elect the UN General Secretary. In the US, it's used in Fargo, North Dakota, and St. Louis, Missouri. Fargo has run 2 elections successfully, seeing most people vote for more than one candidate in their mayoral elections, and seeing high winning mandates across the board. We also did some polling in St. Louis after their election happened. Voters overwhelmingly stated that the instructions were clear, it was easy to understand, easy to use, they felt comfortable with it, they liked it overall, and wanted to expand its use on a 3-to-1 margin. So just to go over quickly everything I said, so these are all the benefits of approval voting over our current system and the other alternatives such as ranked choice. It has a really high winning percentage, which gives that strong mandate to lead. There's high voter satisfaction, low ballot spoilage. You don't need any new voting software. The ballot size remains the same. Counting complexity is low. It's precinct summable, and the voter education is very straightforward. So the reason that we're here today is we've been speaking with the legislature about adding this option for cities to use. Currently, it's not in the pilot program, so cities cannot opt in to use this method. But they have asked us to present to cities to see where the interest might lie. So what we've been doing is asking cities if this is something that you're even potentially interested in, to write a non-binding letter just requesting that the legislature allow cities to use approval voting if they want to. If that is something that the legislature ultimately decides to do, then we would come back and try to have a further discussion to see if this is something you'd actually be interested in doing. We asked that letter be sent to your representatives, Representative Nelson and Senator Thatcher. Of course, this is going to be for the new district lines. Senator Thatcher has actually been a great ally for approval voting. He co-sponsored one of our bills in the legislature to try to add this to the pilot program. So there's great support amongst the legislative members in this area, but we'd like to expand that, of course. And then also it would be beneficial to send this to the Government Operations Committee, as they're ultimately the first people who have the say on whether or not this gets voted on in the legislature. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation and take any questions you have.
You said it's not ranked choice. So what is it?
So the ballot would look exactly as it is now, and the only changes on that instruction line from vote for one to choose as many as you like. Voters can just mark as many candidates as they like. You don't have to put 1, 2, 3 or give them a ranking or anything like that. And the votes are just tallied up as normal in one round. So whoever gets the most votes in that one round still wins the election. That's why it's compatible with all of our voting systems that we have right now.
Okay. I saw an email from Tooele County saying they couldn't get on board because it was not compatible with the law or something like that.
That's correct, yeah.
Comment on that?
Yeah, so that's why we're currently pursuing the legislative path right now, to try to get them just to add it to the pilot project. That would get rid of any legal concerns. We're also in discussion with Lieutenant Governor's office right now, because based on our legal research, there doesn't seem to be anything prohibiting approval voting, because it is the person with the most votes wins. The votes are tallied as normal, so everything in the election code seems compatible with it, but we're just trying to get that approval from them. If Lieutenant Governor's office does say that they approve of counties doing that, we've already had confirmation from Tracy Shaw that she'd be willing to do that, and many other county clerks across the state.
So in a situation where you've got 5 candidates and you like 2 of them, there's no way to differentiate your vote between the 2. You like both of those and both get a vote.
That's correct, yeah. So the standard for approval voting is asking people to draw their line with who would you be okay with winning, who would be that consensus person that you'd be okay with. I often like to say that elections are high stakes, so most people are often more concerned with just making sure people that they really don't like get in, and so people will often choose their favorite and maybe someone that they'd be okay with winning, rather than just choosing their favorite to make sure that everyone has a chance of beating that bad candidate. But there are also people who may have 2 or 3 favorites in a race and just select all of them that way. So it's really up to voters to decide what their criteria is for who they approve of.
Any other questions?
So I read, and I'm sorry I'm coming late to this, but I read something a few weeks ago that gave me the impression that in our situation, all of the candidates would have been considered the same regardless of district. And And the 5 with the highest number of votes would be the council, regardless of district.
Right. So I'm a little bit unfamiliar with your governance structure. Do you have 5 individual districts or do you have 5 seats for one at-large district?
5 individual districts.
Okay, so in that case, each election would still take place as an individual election. And however many people participate in that race would be the people that you get to approve of.
I'm not sure if I'm following that. So would the council in our city, council representatives in our city still be elected by their district?
That's correct. Yeah, you would still have your 5 individual districts.
Yeah, the difference is, instead of winning by 60% to 40% like you did, you probably would have won 98% to 96% against your opponent in the last race. Because the people I know in your district, they struggled with that a lot because they like both of you an awful lot.
You probably missed the first part of it, but one of the main points I think he's hitting on is the possible elimination of a primary.
Yes.
So you just go straight to the general, everybody who ran is on the ballot, and everyone, because they're not limited to voting for one, they can vote for as many as they want, and everybody gets a fair shake.
If there's only 5 candidates and there's only one you don't like, you can vote for the 4 you like. But
What happens if they all tie?
it is an interesting concept.
Yeah, ties are very rare in elections, but current state statute says flip a coin, so that's what it would be. So. Well,
Thank you very
yeah,
much.
thank you all for having me today.
Okay, treasurer report.
Okay, we got our first SOMAS bill for $5,550. And we got legal fees for March and April, the total $22,561.20. That's between like 3 attorneys, so it's not like one big, it's not all John. So, and then the other 280 for the technologies.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
We got a bill also if we're joining the League of Cities and Towns, but it's not due till July.
So I remember talking about joining the League of Cities and Towns,
I don't know that we ever did anything about it.
but I don't remember doing anything about it. And then lo and behold, in my email yesterday, I get a bill from them, dues to join. So I sent that bill to the treasurer. But
How much is it?
we might want to authorize the treasurer to,
Like I said, it's not due till July, but it's like $2,000
$1,000 a year,
$2,096.40
$2,100.
every year?
per year.
Didn't know it was that much. I think they're a good organization.
Let's pass this around if you want to take a gander at it.
It's a good organization and everybody I've talked to says we should join for the support that they can give us. I don't know, that specifically isn't on our agenda, but we should probably put it on there and come up with a resolution of what to do either way.
Should we do a resolution, John, to join the League of Cities and Towns?
You could, or
Vote it up or down?
right now, we could just direct the treasurer.
I'm okay.
It's probably a good investment. If we don't like our investment after year 1, we don't have to do year 2.
But we got a while too. Like I said, it's not due till July 1st.
Okay, we'll put that on as an actual agenda item on next week's, and we'll vote it up or down to direct the treasurer to do that. Next item of business.
We got one more item on the
Oh.
agenda.
Sure.
This is your idea.
That's what I'm,
Oh, that's where he was going.
That's where he's going.
Oh, I thought you were going to B. Sorry.
I'm going to Two Little Eyes. Consideration of flat fee proposal for the city attorney. John has proposed that instead of paying hourly, that we go to a flat fee of $5,000 per month. His idea, not ours. I'm for it for a couple of reasons. One is any one of us with a question on how to move forward on something can just call John. We don't have to go through any sort of approval process. Don't have to worry about getting billed by the hour for that. We're gonna be paying for it nonetheless. I think it would be really helpful, especially for our new recorder. And to be honest, I think we're gonna be getting the better end of the deal on this.
I'm very much supportive of it. Much like John, I hate keeping track of hours and spending my time trying to keep track of how much time I'm spending.
And billing for those hours.
I would rather just do the work. And I think this opens it up. Our recorder could call if there's a question that's brought to her. Our planning and zoning can send things to him and not worry about it, or ask a question about something they're looking at without wondering about the money that's being spent. I think it does nothing but benefit the city.
When Scott and I were reading the resumes and the schedules and the fees and stuff, that is less than any of them had put forward at that time as well, as far as a monthly.
Yeah, he's right there, Terry.
I'm in favor of it. I'm just grateful John brought it up, not me. So thanks, John.
Well, I'll move that starting April, we'll start to pay John
So
Brems,
this
our
month
city
or
attorney.
starting in May.
I'm sorry, starting in April or, yeah, May. May is the
Hey,
next
if he wants to
coming up
back it
month.
up to April.
April's over.
No, it's almost over. I didn't get paid for April yet, so I'll just call that April if you want.
Let's do that.
Not if you're not comfortable.
I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, I move that we begin paying Mr. Brems $5,000 per month for his services beginning in April 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say it's unanimous. Thank you, John. Doing a great job for us. Mr. Smith, do we have anything for land use and zoning?
The only thing I can think of is Somas is committed that they will have our initial draft for us to look at next week. And we'll look at that and see what modifications and get it moved on to planning and zoning.
Right?
Tie up a loose end too, though, because I know we talked about, you were gonna go talk to a couple engineering, because that one guy wasn't gonna do it, to be the auditor or whatever for Ensign. And you was gonna go talk to like 2 or 3 of them.
I responded to that email.
Right, that was, and I remembered you'd sent a thing about Wasatch, but I didn't know about this other one, so I didn't know. So they're both contracted now to do the same thing, or is it 2 separate things they're gonna be doing?
Wasatch Engineering and
Aquas.
Aquas are both contracted with the city, and Ensign can use either one of them interchangeably whenever they want, however they want.
Ward Engineering will also be sending over the contract the next week. I talked with Brendan today. They'll be sending that contract for John to look at next week. And the reason that Ensign suggested Ward is anything that has anything to do with Stansbury Park Improvement District, like sewer and water lines, Ward is already intimately familiar with. They'll be able to review those very quick and efficiently and save us money there, so.
Was Ward the same as Aqua?
No, they're.
We got 3.
We will have 3 to do different reviews depending on who can do it timely and cheaply. And
Is there any cost to retain them, or is it just a user as go type thing?
They have a rate sheet, we use them as we need. Okay. Anything else? Can't think of anything. Roads?
We need to start kind of deciding which way we want to go with that, whether this fall, we're gonna try to buy some equipment, or if we're gonna try to contract it out, or which way we're gonna go. Cause it's gonna be honest before we know it, and we need, to have it in place way before we have to have it. So we just gotta decide if we wanna just try to contract it the first year, or if we wanna try to buy the equipment, but I don't know how much from the B and C funds we're gonna be getting to be able to go towards that type thing. Cause on a normal deal, the B and C funds pretty much is supposed to pay for all your roads and stuff like that, if you can afford it, to save up or whatever. But I have no idea what that's gonna come out to be, so we need to be kinda gearing up towards that. I don't know if we wanna talk with like one of the other cities, like with Grantsville, that they're gonna be doing some other snow plowing up our way, since they got a lot of the flats and stuff, whether we contract a portion with them or how we wanna do it. But we just need to kinda put that on our brains and kinda think about it for a while and decide which way we wanna go. As at the end of June, no more county, anything as far as roads go, so.
Let's keep talking to them about it. And let's keep trying to get with Jed Bell. He can tell us how much we've been getting. And I'm hoping that he'll say, why don't I just do it?
But we still need a plan B.
Yep, we do. Yep.
It's like with law enforcement, we need a plan B.
Ordinance adoption?
planning and zoning's gonna start looking at some of those, giving us a recommendation. We've asked the attorney to go through and look at some of the county ordinance. Seems like the planning and zoning is leaning hard on those, make some adjustments, go into it with a scalpel, maybe not an axe, and see what needs to be adjusted and changed and fixed, so. But the planning and zoning's gonna start looking at those and give us a recommendation shortly.
Just are we talking general or non-land use or land use?
They asked that specific question, and I said land use, yes, for sure.
Because planning and zoning, or planning commission, they don't need to be involved in non-land use.
They don't need to be, I told them if they gave us a recommendation, we would certainly look at anything they gave us though.
Okay.
So. It's another meeting, it's 7 more heads trying to come up with an idea. I told them we'd listen to the recommendation if they were going to look at it.
So I had a question asked to me yesterday. About when will our planning and zoning be able to look at subdivisions?
We have asked John to change our ordinance. He said it would take, I don't know, what was that, a week or almost 2 weeks ago. He said it would take a little bit of time with the other things, hopefully. How much more time do you think, next week or?
Probably do it next week.
We should have an amendment to that ordinance where we can start allowing subdivisions.
Applications.
Doc Taylor asked me about that a couple days ago too, so. That should be coming up.
All right, we'll shoot for next week.
So my memory of that is those that had already made applications were gonna proceed.
I think we can allow any subdivision with its current zoning to proceed.
Okay, so we have to adopt the whole subdivision code.
Uh,
Doesn't that moratorium say it only had to be for what's already in the mill or something. So we'd have to change that, the original.
What we're talking about doing is amending the moratorium ordinance to lift subdivisions from it this May.
Yeah, one of the questions we had was down in Golden Gardens. Someone wants to do a minor subdivision, split one of their lots to match every lot next to it. We've had some small ones like that that would not have been in the counties previously. I don't have a problem with just adopting subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, like we had done with other ordinances.
And then on the size,
Yeah, we're not,
You're talking about adopting Twilla counties and then take a look at it, see if we need to change part of it like we've done in other ordinances.
yeah, I think that was the plan, and we're not changing, we're not allowing rezones. This is only subdivisions on property that is zoned for what that subdivision would be. And other than 122 acre parcel, it's gonna be a 1 acre subdivision or larger. So it's time to lift it and just let them start doing it, I think.
Okay, we'll watch for
Is
that.
that clear as mud?
Yeah, we'll adopt the Solitary, Dual County's subdivision ordinance by reference.
Okay.
That's the moratorium with respect to subdivision.
And we'll just add that to the temporary ordinance, and then when we lift the temporary one, we'll put whatever in permanently.
visit the county one, talk in reference to current zoning and not changing it, right?
We're not gonna do anything with rezones right now. We're not gonna allow. This is only for the subdivision approval.
The rezone will be the last portion of the moratorium that still exists after we pass this.
Yeah, we really cannot do anything there until we have our general plan in place. Or it would be unwise to do anything there until we have our general plan.
Scott, those were sent to us, one for each of us and one for the members of the planning commission.
Who sent them to us?
That organization, the Utah Land Use Institute.
Oh.
Okay, anything else on ordinance adoption? Thank you for that. Economic development.
Nothing new. Just got that meeting with Winder and Mill Creek on Monday.
I have something.
Yeah.
So one of my assignments on the Council of Governments, which I was just at, is their county economic development board. So I should probably get together with you two. How can we do that without it being a meeting? I
Individually,
just have to do it one at a time?
Do a one-on-one.
Okay, well, anyway, there's proposals to do studies, feasibility studies, you might call it, or economic studies on several projects in Twilla Valley to see what it's gonna take to get those necessary utilities brought to them and things like that. And one of the projects is in Erda. It's down at the airport where, and we know a little bit about this, not a lot, but where the airport wants to bring in some buildings to help house firefighters when there's a wildland fire and they're using that airport. They also need bathroom facilities there, and the parachute people need a building. Anyway, we're on one of those studies and to see what it's gonna cost to get water and sewer brought to the airport. And then I had a meeting unofficially with Neil Critchlow, and he said they've talked to Grantsville about it, and apparently Grantsville has a sewer line not very far from there and a water line. And so that seemed like the most economic way to do it. But all of that's gonna be going forward in the next several months.
Didn't Stansbury say they would have ran that to them and they turned them down at that time?
Yeah, and looking at what, this little map that they gave us, Neil pointed out where they have utilities already. And it's like a tenth of the distance of getting it from Stansbury Park. So
Well, that Stansbury line runs right into Golden Garden, so I don't
that
understand.
water line
The
does,
water
but the
line.
sewer doesn't.
Yeah.
And so they would do sewer and water together. And anyway, I'll just keep you
Am I the
informed.
only one that gets nervous that those are running the same trench?
Well, they actually can't, but
Yeah, they're not supposed to be in the same.
they cannot cross each other. That's, I learned that.
Interesting.
Anyway, so I'll try and keep you guys in the loop on what comes down from the Council of Government, on economic development.
Okay, thank you. IT, we've got one bid for a laptop. It's not my favorite, but it's a Dell and it's got a good warranty on it for under 2,000. So Jen found for us. Meets my specs. And it will be able to do what both of those laptops are doing there in one shot, so. But we're also putting together a direct relationship with Dell and see if we can get an even better price, but we'll see, I guess we'll see what percolates this week, but maybe we approve a laptop next Thursday for Jen, that's okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Do anything else on IT?
About printer.
Oh,
I have found several printers. I just wasn't sure all of the specs and I haven't gotten an official bid for them yet. But I've been looking at different kinds that would fit our needs. And then I was gonna sign up with specific brands to people to give us bids on them. So I will try and have that ready for the meeting next week as well. For you guys to look at and decide.
office location, I think we'll be voting next Thursday on up or down on the Erda, West Erda location.
Awesome.
At the fire station.
At the fire station.
This is the part where I throw you, part you'd hate. We've got this on the agenda. We've talked about this a lot. It's $400 for this office. I think we're all in support of it. I move that we allow the chair to execute the contract with the North Dakota County Fire Department, and let's get that office and get it done.
Did you read that proposal?
I did, and
It
was, and that's because we let attorneys in on it. That's why we hate them all. 14 pages to say you can use this office.
Was John part of that procedure?
John was a part of that procedure.
John wrote it.
John wrote it.
It's worse.
That's why we're moved back and we're only paying $5,000 for next month because we spent 10 hours writing that contract. But I let's just quit messing with this. Let's take office location off our agenda. Let's get it done. I think move we authorize the chair to execute the contract.
But it's an interlocal, you have to approve the interlocal by resolution.
Oh, John.
So it'll be on next week.
Let's have a resolution next Thursday.
Okay.
The drop dead to pay, according to your paperwork, was May 1st.
I'm sure they'll work on this.
I bet they will.
Okay. Council representative reports, we've already had half of one, maybe. You
Well,
wanna
more.
finish?
I'm not done with that office, and
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
if we're gonna have an office, I think we ought to authorize the chair to spend up to $3,000 to buy a safe, a couple $1,000s for a desk and a printer,
That's budget.
and apparently $2,500 for a computer.
We'd have to modify the budget for that.
We will have to make some budget adjustments, but
Some modifications.
IT has 8,000 in it, I think.
And there's money there
And I did-
already allocated for
$500 was only for office stuff.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So a safe wouldn't fall under IT.
It would fall under the office though.
I mean, if we can just kind of roll back a little bit, because June is gonna be the end of our deal, and we'll have to do next month's budget, or next 6 months' budget.
How should we do that? John, do we want to try to do a budget amendment or?
I would, if you can buy the stuff now, do a budget amendment.
We,
We've
we,
got May and June to go.
yeah, we need a safe somewhere to put our stuff. We can buy a 80-gun fireproof safe that weighs 1,000 pounds to put stuff in there. We don't need Jen packing around $1,500 cash or, you know, some of our papers. They need to be somewhere. Let's get them somewhere. Let's not wait. Let's get a printer and a desk and just authorize the chair to get those things. And
Like I says, we'll have to do a budget amendment, so we'll get Dave to do a budget amendment.
yeah, when we know what it is, we'll do
So-
a budget amendment.
Let's work on getting Dave to get us a budget amendment by next Thursday. Okay.
Sorry, Jen, I tried.
It's okay. Can you send me an email with the specific things that you're interested in looking for so I can get bids for all of them? Just have to get bids for a few things before we can actually purchase them.
Does that all have to go through that Utah, so we don't have to do RFPs?
I don't know if we need bids if we use the approved vendor list.
If we use the
We will
approved-
need to find out who's selling them from the vendor, and then we'll probably have to get the price from them.
Also, if something's under a certain price range, we can just get it.
Just call me.
Yeah, it's nice
You can
and
call the
easy.
attorney now.
Let's call me anytime you want to. Become your friend, John.
Let's get moving on this and let's not hamstring Jen anymore.
Now that Corey's gone.
Now that Corey's gone, got a real recorder, it's time to be serious.
Corey's probably listening to this.
He is, for sure. As soon as he left us, quitter. All right, I'm done.
Okay.
And you'll have to get me a price to what you're talking about too, so I can pass it on to see what the budget increase is gonna be.
Yeah, we'll need to work that out before we can spend at least the office expenses. Anything else from
Yep.
council governments?
Yep. So we had a big presentation from a guy from the short word for it is the Superfund. And Brownsfield Reclamation Board. And he explained all about how you get money to do Superfund sites. And they don't have to be the big Superfund sites. It could be just an old gas station or something like that. So from that, I can't think of any place in Erda other than
The
the,
nutrients place, did that get super funded?
like that did back in the 80s. So I guess I'm putting this out to everybody that's listening. If there's a site somewhere in our boundaries that needs reclamation, we need to know about it so that there's money available to clean up those kinds of things.
The qualifiers.
Can you give me an example of what
Well,
what would need to be reclaimed?
He gave us all kinds of examples, like old auto repair facilities, maybe where petroleum or things like that had been spilled or leaked, old gas stations, old mining sites, or manufacturing facilities. And he made a comment about dry cleaners.
They're the worst.
That's what he said. He said, these things are like nitroglycerin. He said, it's crazy. So fortunately, we don't have that. But if there's anything within our boundaries, we need to know about it because there's money to clean it up. So,
What's landowner's responsibility?
it is, and he mentioned that. He said that's always been the rule. But he said these super funds have been created specifically to take that burden off because oftentimes landowners can't afford the millions of dollars it costs to clean up some things, so. All right, I think that's all I can think of right now.
Any other?
Had a meeting with SPID this morning. They're looking at doing their long-term planning, the area for sewer and water, wanting to know who's in, who's out. They are looking for what we feel the densities in Erda will be. I committed that as soon as we got the draft of our plan, we would send it to them. But they have historically been planning on 3 homes per acre through all of Erda. I told them we could probably plan for a few less homes than that. Maybe a lot less homes of that in a vast majority of Erda. So we'll need to work with them. So as they're sizing lines for where they go, they know what size to make them.
When are we gonna talk about the PID idea?
So are we saying we're adopting Stansberry sewer and water for this whole city of Erda? Is that what you're saying?
No, well, no, and not for the whole city of Erda, but there are areas that they service or may service in the future. And so that's what they're making their plan. Like Ochre Point, their plan is for them to come up and service Ochre Point. Well, everything in that area where those sewer lines come through, or water lines go through,
That was part of their development agreement, right?
well, the sewer line comes clear through the heart of Erda, comes up, 12th West and then, or Bates Canyon over. They want to make sure that it's big enough that as everything builds out, it can handle that. So they want to know kind of what we think Erda will look like in 40 years. So they don't want to put in an 8-inch line and find out 10 years later that they needed a 16-inch.
That goes back to my point. So then anything being built now, you're saying is gonna have to use Stansberry's sewer and water.
No, won't have to,
But could have that option.
but could have an option to do that.
Man, my understanding is that with SPID, you don't have a mandate, it's an option.
It is an option.
You can still do your $30,000 fancy
Correct.
tank if you want. You asked when we were gonna talk about,
Yeah, when are we gonna talk about the PID?
so we had a presentation on it last week. Thought that went pretty well. We didn't really decide on what happened next, at least I don't remember that.
Weren't they gonna work on what kind of a bond they were gonna choose?
Yeah.
I imagine,
So we're kind of waiting on a proposal from Ochre Point.
yeah, I know a board needs to be appointed. I know that, we need to decide on, or they need to propose the structure that this PID will have, and then we need to approve it. And I'm hoping that we're all included in that discussion on
Okay.
what that PID looks like. That way, they don't do a bunch of work and then it comes to us and it's up or down. So, okay, council representative reports, any other meetings? General comments?
Well, I was gonna have a long one, but now it's gonna be short. I was hoping beginning in May, the city of Erda could start looking forward in the future, not keep turning our head and looking behind us. And hopefully, I was hoping we could leave the past in the past and create a new future. And all animosity and all heartbreak and all stuff would be left behind, but apparently I was wrong. So that's all I got to say.
So let's just keep looking at it that way.
Okay.
Do we,
We're doing better tomorrow.
Now, that brings up a question though, do we need to do anything with 6 Mile? We ought to, we probably need to talk sometime officially, whether we're gonna appeal it or not. And if we're not gonna appeal it, yeah, if we're not gonna appeal it, do we need to issue some kind of a statement about that, or?
I think what happens is first they gotta do like an official reply to their thing, like within 20 days, they have to give they're in writing their decision. And
They
then,
have to issue
Oh, the
their-
board
The
does?
board has to issue their decision in writing.
then after that, we got 30 days to say yay or no.
Decide whether to appeal it.
So that would be one of our agenda items once we get the official from the board of, okay. Okay. Let's end this before I come up with another question.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
A second.
Moving in second that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We adjourn.
Scott,
Shut down time, go.
I'm not gonna be here next week. I'm gonna be in Colorado.
Good thinking.
Been my week a year job.
Part of Colorado.
Pueblo.